President Obama makes his case to the country for gun control and his right to do it without Congress. Welcome to the Mike Broomhead Show.
Well, I got a message, I got a song. Can I get a witness? Tell me what's going on. I show the people I've been away.
All right, the president, he lays out his case for gun control and his right with executive order to do it without Congress. He's going to do that all week long. This is signing executive orders. He has a press conference. He has a town hall meeting. All of these things are happening. We're going to talk about that today on the show. We've got hashtag this. We have Broomhead's Best. And of course, we start each week off with the sweep. In Oregon, there is a land occupation, a protest. What are we calling this thing? There's a bunch of guys who went to Oregon and they're occupying a federal building. Now, on the face of what they're arguing for, I agree with them 100%. They want, first of all, this family called the Hammond family released from prison. I find it ironic that this family is going to prison for 5 years for starting a fire and letting it get out of control on federal land. Nobody in the federal government and the EPA even lost their job when millions of gallons of tainted water went into the Animas River. No one even lost their job. These people are in prison for 5 years. That's one demand. The other demand is that all federal land be turned over to the states. I agree with both, by the way. You don't arm yourself and occupy a federal building and make demands. You are trespassing, and you're making everybody that agrees with you look like an idiot. There's a Phoenix connection to this. If you remember the Bundy family, Cliven Bundy is the man's name, who had the interaction on his land with the government where they were coming after him. Well, his son, Ammon Bundy, lived in Buckeye, Arizona for a while. And do you remember the name John Ritzheimer? Ritzheimer is the one who organized the mosque protest in Glendale, the former Marine. I don't want to go after Ritzheimer. I've got to tell you, I feel for this guy. He served his country. I think he's dealing with PTSD. I'm no doctor, but he's exhibiting signs. This is a guy that wants to do the right thing, I think, but nobody around him will get him the help that he needs. And I think him going from Phoenix and a mosque protest, driving across country to Michigan, and posting videos online where he's going to make citizens arrests against people, and now to cross the country to Oregon to be a part of this, shows you he's seeking a cause. This isn't it. This is not it. Wanting to do the right thing is always the right thing, but man, you don't arm yourself and occupy buildings and make demands. The other big story this week, the North Koreans say they've tested a hydrogen bomb. Well, they say it's a smaller version of a hydrogen bomb. So we're calling it the H2. It's an H2 bomb. It registered over 5 points on the Richter scale. That's how we knew there was an explosion there. Same as the last piece of military equipment, or last bomb they tested. Most experts agree that it probably wasn't a hydrogen bomb. Either way, they are testing weapons, nuclear-grade weapons. We're worried about them being able to put them mounted on a missile. Can they ever get something close to the U.S. coast? What's the UN Security Council going to do about it? Another big headline, and something we're going to have to watch closely in the foreign policy with the United States. The local headline in Phoenix, where we're based, and I think it affects everybody in Arizona, is a possibility of a bus strike in Phoenix. This went from ridiculous to just plain stupid. The Phoenix bus drivers were threatening to strike because they say they don't have enough bathroom breaks. They say bus drivers are wearing adult diapers while driving the buses. I don't want to take public transportation to begin with. I don't want to be on that bus now for sure. Now, the fact of the matter is they want a pay raise. Interesting that the city of Phoenix raises taxes, $1 billion a year in sales taxes to pay for transportation. And just weeks after the taxes passed by the taxpayers, the unions want a raise. Only in Phoenix, by the way. Firefighters and cops haven't been restored fully to what they gave back to the city during the downturn in the economy. But the bus drivers want a raise. Listen, the city council, and you, if you live in Phoenix, should be calling them, but everybody around Arizona should be upset about this. If you ever buy anything in Phoenix, it's going to cost you more because of this tax. And the fact is, if the city council doesn't say to this bus drivers union, if your butts aren't in those seats, diaper or not, and you aren't at work, we're going to replace you with someone else. This is just the right thing to do. You can't do something like this and threaten everybody. By the way, the national championship football game is here. They seem to coincide. Another big headline in good news, a 15-year study on data of officer-involved shootings happened, and the fact is we have officer-involved shootings are at a 6-year low. 30-year low in murders, only 113 murdered in Phoenix in 2015. Well, wait a minute. We're talking about gun control. There are more guns than ever on the streets. If there's one thing we can say about the president, is he's great for gun sales. There are more gun permits and more sales happening now than ever before. There are more guns on the streets of Phoenix, all across the state of Arizona, and cities across the country, and the murder rates are down. Somebody explain that to me. In the gun crowd, explain to me how we have relaxed our laws to the most lenient gun laws in the entire country. In the state of Arizona, if you can legally own a handgun, you can conceal it without a permit. Now, I've always maintained a concealed carry permit. It gives me reciprocity with other states, but I don't have to have a permit to carry a concealed weapon. Our laws are that lax, and yet we have fewer murders. Explain it to me. If you can explain that away, I would love to hear it. Coming up in a moment, President Obama and his gun control initiatives. By executive order, he's talking about background checks and other things. He has a press conference this week where he's got family members. Gabrielle Giffords was there with her husband. We also had the family of Christina Taylor Greene who was there. That was the girl that was killed in that same shooting. He was introduced by a father of one of the victims at Sandy Hook Elementary School, where he laid out his case for executive orders. He signs executive orders and has a town hall meeting, which wasn't a town hall meeting, by the way. A town hall meeting, show up and make your voice heard, right? No, not so fast. In a moment, we get to that. Social media users, find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. In a moment, we talk gun control. Thanks for being here. It's the Mike Broomhead Show.
The Mike Broomhead Show is brought to you in part by Cliff Castle Casino Hotel and Sanderson Ford.
All right, welcome back. It's the Mike Broomhead Show, and the big topic this week, and it's going to be a topic for quite a long time, is gun control. The president had a press conference earlier this week in which he surrounded himself with families who had been victims of gun violence, most of them mass shootings. He was introduced by a man whose child was killed at Sandy Hook Elementary School. Gabrielle Giffords was there. The family from Tucson of Christina Taylor Greene, that was the little girl who was killed when Gabrielle Giffords was injured so severely. He alluded to Columbine, and he talked about mass shootings in Colorado. So this was about mass shootings in this press conference and the desire to stop them or slow them down. What's hard to argue about in this conversation is the desire for that to stop. Before I talk about the president's plan, let me just say, on the radio show, one of the most difficult days I've ever had was Sandy Hook Elementary. At the time, I was doing afternoons at KFYI. And in the morning, we heard about a shooting at an elementary school. And we watched the death toll as it climbed from a few to possibly over 10. And as the day progressed, we found out that an entire classroom full of first graders had been murdered. I was shaken. I mean, I'm not embarrassed to admit that I was so shaken, I left our building and didn't know how I was going to be able to go on the air for 3 hours and talk about such a senseless crime. I couldn't even connect myself with this kind of a crime. I don't want to live in a world where this kind of evil exists. In the days that followed, of course, it became a political argument about gun control. And one of the ideas that were brought out by Anytown and some of these anti-gun organizations was background checks. And they wanted background checks for even individual sales, hand-to-hand sales, that excluded, the only exclusion, were family members. And the funny thing, the ironic thing about that was the murderer's name was Adam Lanza. Adam Lanza, if this law had been in effect, would not have been stopped by the law. Adam Lanza had his mother's guns. Now, the horrible part of that story is Adam Lanza stole his mother's guns and shot his own mother to death while she slept, and then murdered an entire first grade class. I understand the emotion of wanting this to end. I can't imagine the sadness and the anger that that father feels. But when the President of the United States stands at a podium and he argues that his plan is going to stop even one of these from happening, two things. First of all, he's making it more difficult for someone like me or someone like you to buy or sell a firearm. But that's the least of it. The bigger part of it is, it's not going to even solve the problem. It's not even going to put a dent in the problem. He said that he wants expanded background checks. He made the statement, which was completely false, by the way, that you can go online and buy a firearm and have it shipped to you, no questions asked. That's not true. If you go online to a gun dealer and buy a gun online, that gun gets shipped to a federally licensed firearm dealer. You have to go to that dealer makes you pass the background check, then they issue you the firearm. There's a fee involved, but that's how that works. You cannot go online and buy a firearm and just have it shipped to you, no questions asked. Is he talking about Craigslist? I don't know what he's talking about in that regard. But it's just not true with gun dealers. Gun dealers, 99% of the time, are honest people that never want to see guns they sell fall into the wrong hands. They're going to hire more FBI agents, more ATF agents. The biggest issue is any of this constitutional? The longer effects of what's happening right now have nothing to do with the Second Amendment. They have everything to do with the separation of powers. The Founding Fathers came from a monarchy. They lived under the dictatorship of a king. Well, you are at the mercy of the king. Sometimes it's a good and benevolent and wise king, and other times you have somebody that's heavy-handed and does not take the will of the people at heart. We separated the powers so that the executive branch cannot act unilaterally, so that the Congress divided into two houses. The House of Representatives is the people's house. Small districts across the country, based on population, represented. All spending bills come out of the House of Representatives. It is more of a fast-moving House. The Senate, each state represented equally by 2 senators, but they also have the ability to debate and amend, and that's why it takes much longer to get out of the Senate. They call the Senate the saucer that cools the drink. That is the Congress. That's the legislative branch. And then to make sure that everything fits in with the 4 corners of the Constitution is the judicial branch and the Supreme Court. When the president wants to act unilaterally on something and arbitrarily make a law, add to a law, or do any of those things, what he does is relegate the Congress to either being a rubber stamp and saying, yes, do whatever you want, or just a dissenting voice where there's no stopping him. And that's what's happening right now. That's why people are outraged. That's why people that even agree with this president should be outraged. The question is, will this solve the problem? The answer is absolutely not. The president's plan will do nothing, because what will happen is law-abiding gun owners like you and me will abide by the law. But the very people that would commit these kind of crimes aren't going to abide by the law. They don't abide by the existing laws. Murder is against the law, and they still do it. But secondary, the other part of this is the constitutional question. Because for everyone who agrees with this president and his executive orders and the things that he is doing needs to remember this. In less than a year, we will have a new president. What if Rick Santorum becomes president and he decides that he hates abortion, so an executive order, he stops abortion? What if Ted Cruz or what if Donald Trump becomes president of the United States? Do you want them wielding the same power of the cell phone and the pen outside of the purview of Congress that President Obama is doing? Because he is setting the precedent right now of executive power. It is an overreach. The powers have been separated for a reason. The president should be lobbying Congress instead of having press conferences and fake town hall meetings. Last thing I'll say about the town hall meeting, it's invitation only. It was not open to the public. This was a for-media infomercial for the president's plan. This is not how the executive branch was designed. This is not how we should run this country. So let's solve the problem, but let's have real solutions to the problem, and let's not do it with a king. Let's do it with the separation of powers as the Constitution is said to do. This is a serious issue. We want to make sure we do it. All right, we'll be back here in just a few moments. We've got a lot more going on. Broomhead's Best, hashtag this, all right around the corner. Don't go away. All right, welcome back. Thanks for being on the Mike Broomhead Show. Brand new year. Let's talk a little bit about the beginnings of this show. One of the first things we did was interview Michael Bidwill, the owner of the Arizona Cardinals. And he also has University of Phoenix Stadium, which is out in Glendale. And 10 years ago, before the stadium was built, and years before that, the Cardinals said, you build us a stadium, we'll put a winner on the field. And in addition to that, think of the revenue that can be generated. And there was a big argument in Arizona about that stadium and about football and about sports in Arizona. The fact is, this is the best time of year right now. Think about what's happening in Arizona. The Fiesta Bowl had Ohio State and Notre Dame, two elite programs that travel very well, and they did. If you look at some of the bowl games around the country and you watch the attendance is really low. They look for television revenue. So it does well for the sponsor of the game, and the teams that are playing in the bowl game usually make a little bit of money, but it doesn't do much for the economy of the local economy, wherever the game is played. Look at what the Fiesta Bowl did just this year. The Fiesta Bowl had two great teams. Played where? University of Phoenix Stadium. And what's coming up? The national championship game. Alabama and the undefeated Clemson Tigers. It's going to be, for a sports fan like me, it's going to be an amazing game. The game is really going to be fantastic. But as a citizen of Arizona, as someone that loves to watch us be shown off across the country, the blimp will be here, the aerial shots. There's going to be a camera up on South Mountain that is going to show how beautiful the valley is. It's going to welcome people here. Some of the wealthiest business owners across the country, just like when we host the Super Bowl, are going to be here to watch the game. The television audience is going to see a great game, but also the economy is going to do well. The businesses out in Westgate, hotels in Phoenix and Scottsdale, resorts are all going to benefit from this in the short term. But from a Chamber of Commerce or for a tourism point of view, what could possibly be better for Arizona than that? It really is a great time to be here. The revenue of University of Phoenix Stadium and what's there, not to mention the fact the Final Four is going to be there soon. Now let's talk about the Cardinals, because the Cardinals have the second seed in the NFL, or in the NFC. So now they will have a bye in the first week. They are going to host they will host the Minnesota Vikings or the winner of the game between the Packers and the Redskins. Either way, the Cardinals will be hosting the first round of the playoffs. This is going to be a great time of year for us all the way around. So we talk sports whether you're a fan or you're not a fan. But the best way to talk about sports for Arizona is look what it does for our economy. ASU is one of the biggest universities in the country. They're tied in enrollment or change places for first place almost every year with Ohio State. Are the football program where Ohio State is? No, it's not there yet. The University of Arizona has a great football program. The Territorial Cup is a nationally televised game for a reason. It's one of the greatest rivalries in the country. Both of those teams are in the Pac-12, which is an elite conference in football. From a fan point of view, again, a great way to watch and a great thing to see. But from an economy point of view, from a revenue point of view, look how we benefit from sports, especially football and University of Phoenix Stadium. So I'll say to the Bidwill family, thanks for keeping your word. Thanks for putting a team on the field like the Arizona Cardinals. Last year, they had the Executive of the Year and the Coach of the Year. It may not be both this year, but both of them are still doing a fantastic job with the teams on the field. You've got Larry Fitzgerald, and you've got Carson Palmer. You got a rookie running back, Johnson, who was just named NFL Player of the Month. All of that was made possible because the citizens of Arizona financed the building of that stadium. I don't think that anybody can argue with the payoff that we've gotten back for the investment in University of Phoenix Stadium. From my point of view, I think it does great things for us. This is a Cardinals community now. We have a team that people love first. It's not their second favorite team anymore. So congratulations to Arizona and University of Phoenix Stadium. They've hosted so many great events there, and there are so many more to come. I just wanted to take a minute to say, not only is it good if you're a sports fan, and I love it as a sports fan, as a citizen here, it does more things than you can imagine in direct payoff in the economy and also in the other things with tourism for the people that come here for the games and see just what a wonderful place that we have. So that's it. I wanted to take just a moment to just reminisce about the football that we've played and the ones that are still to come, and let's just see if the Cardinals can get to the Super Bowl one more time, and this time bring home an NFL championship. That's our wish, right? In just a minute, hashtag this, Broomhead's Best, to end the show. We'll do that here in just a few minutes, so don't go away. In just a few minutes, we're going to do hashtag this and Broomhead's Best, a great story for Arizona in Broomhead's Best. You're going to love it. And hashtag this, an unbelievable thing for parents, so don't go away. All right, so this is the part of the show where it's got to be something Arizona and something that's really good. Both fit here. It's Broomhead's Best. So I was traveling over the Christmas break, and I was sitting in the airport in Terminal 4, and when I go to Terminal 4, I go to Four Peaks to have lunch. I get a kilt lifter and fish and chips. And I always tweet out a picture saying I'm at Four Peaks because I'm a big fan of them and kilt lifter. And I was inundated with pictures on Facebook of a story that Anheuser-Busch had bought Four Peaks. And it was such a mix of comments about them selling out, and it's horrible, to congratulating them. So I reached out to the owners because I know them fairly well, and I had Andy and Jim come in with me, two of the owners from Four Peaks. This is great for Arizona. They are going to brew this beer in Arizona for as long as they can during the expansion until there's just no more room. But they're going to be in Nevada, they're going to be in California, they're going to be nationwide. So they're not going to destroy Arizona's beer. They're going to take Arizona's beer nationwide. What a success story for four guys that just wanted to open a place to sell craft beer. And now it's so popular, they're going to take it nationwide. So Broomhead's Best this week. Congratulations to Four Peaks and the guys there, and all of us here in Arizona that have been enjoying Kilt Lifter and Hop Knot and A Street Ale and Peach Ale and everything else they sell. And watch how this does nationwide. Anheuser-Busch has nothing like it, so they have Four Peaks now, and everyone's going to know how good we have it here. So congratulations to the guys from Four Peaks. Now it's time for what's burning up the internet. It's called hashtag this. All right, the girl's name is Vendela Payne. Her father was with her, and they were traveling at the Raleigh-Durham airport. This 10-year-old girl had in her bag, in her purse or in her bag, a Capri Sun. Dangerous, right? Well, because she had liquid that wasn't whatever the rules were, the TSA pulled her aside and said, we're going to have to pat her down. Her father was incensed, so he videotaped the whole thing as a female TSA agent is patting this girl down under her shirt, her waistband, inside of her thighs, her backside. Now, I'm not saying that there was anything, she wasn't being molested, but this little girl was being invaded. She was definitely had her privacy invaded. The father protesting the entire time during the cell phone video. This isn't fair. And all of these other, go and see the video, because the TSA agent that was the supervisor that's standing there with him watching, instead of being someone that's saying, sir, I understand, we have no choice, we have to do this, and talking this guy down, actually says to this father, we don't live in a fair world. Or I don't understand how this guy keeps his job. No one loses their job in the federal government. Since when is it okay to talk to a customer that way? This father is watching his 10-year-old daughter being patted down by a stranger. And he didn't lose his temper. He videotaped and he protested the whole thing. Go and watch the video. You ought to be incensed. We all want to be safe at the airport. And I'm not saying the TSA looks forward to doing these things, but they can handle it a lot better. And until people start losing their jobs for being idiots like this to the customers, they're going to keep doing it. So that's hashtag this for this week. We'll be back here in just a couple of moments to close out the show, so don't go away.
The Mike Broomhead Show is brought to you in part by Cliff Castle Casino Hotel and Sanderson Ford.
Big issues this year as we elect a new president, but right now with the existing president and executive orders on gun control. This is a very passionate issue for people, but keep your eye on it. Do the right thing. We all want to solve problems, but you can't just make law by yourself. It's just impossible to do that. Got another show coming up for you next week. Always Broomhead's Best, always hashtag this. And we'd love for you to keep in touch with us via social media. Find us on Twitter, find us on Facebook, and the AZTV page is another place you can interact with us there. So I hope you'll do that. We're back next week on Saturday. Thanks for joining us. God bless.
Get more of Mike Broomhead on Facebook, Twitter, and of course weekday mornings from 6 to 10 on News Talk 550 KFYI.